Hi, good afternoon, everyone. We are Parker Faustino Pagayatan Law Offices. We are a full-service law firm based in Makati, and welcome to the second installment in our webinar series. No, pangalawa na to because last month we had another webinar. We discussed BIR updates. No, I am Attorney Oliver Faustino. And this afternoon, we are discussing Estate Tax Amnesty. And joining me this afternoon as co-speaker is Ms. Mayra Celeste Dabalos. She is a certified public accountant, an independent tax consultant, and an expert in tax compliance. No? She will be talking about later, bibigyan niya tayo ng sample computation para mas maliwanag sa atin yung mga concepts na di-discuss natin ngayong hapon. Also part of the panel is our attorney, Jeffrey David. He will be our moderator later sa Q&A portion. So bakit ba natin, good afternoon, Ms. Mayra. Good afternoon, Jeff.
Good afternoon, Attorney Oliver. Good afternoon, everyone.
Okay, so ginagawa natin tong webinar series. This is part of our advocacy to promote taxpayer education and to inform the general public about their rights under the law. And as part of that advocacy, hindi lang tong webinar series. This webinar, you can find this webinar series. We're live now on Facebook. You could also find in our Facebook page the previous webinar that we have done, and also available din to sa YouTube channel ng PFP Law Offices, and also in LinkedIn, and also as part of the advocacy I mentioned earlier, you can find us in Daily Tribune. We have a weekly column there called Practical Law. So dinidiscuss natin doon yung iba-ibang mga legal concepts in a way that would be more understandable to the general public. And also in the Daily Tribune Facebook page, merong weekly program kami doon. It's called Katribo. Ganun din, parang we try to answer yung mga questions na nire-raise ng mga participants doon sa sa forum na yon. So please visit these social media platforms and take a look at our column in the Daily Tribune and in our program there called Katribo for more information and updates. So let's proceed now to this afternoon's topic. But before we do that, bigyan muna natin kayo ng outline kung paano magpo-proceed yung discussion ngayong hapon. First, we will discuss a brief backgrounder on estate tax. Then we will discuss the tax on the rates on estate tax, yung old versus the new rates. And then we will proceed with the estate tax amnesty proper. After that, we will discuss the procedure and the requirements for the availment of tax amnesty. And then, as I mentioned earlier, si Ms. Mayra Dabalos will give us a sample computation para makita natin how the concepts are applied. And finally, we will discuss the effects of the availment of tax amnesty. So let's start. So ano ba ang estate tax? Estate tax is a transfer tax. Ito ay buwis sa paglilipat ng mga ari-arian para mailipat sa pangalan ng mga bagong magmamayari. It's also akin to an excise tax in the sense that it is a tax on the privilege of transmitting those properties upon the death of the owner. Pero makikita nyo, hindi lang yung estate tax is not limited to transfers after the death or after mamatay yung may-ari, because there are certain transfers na kahit buhay pa yung may-ari nung ari-arian, depende sa circumstances na tinitreat ito ng batas na parang as if these are equivalent to testamentary disposition. Like for example, merong mga magulang nagbebenta ng property sa minor nilang anak, no? Minsan mapa-flag yan ng BIR for being transfer and contemplation of death. Parang in a way na parang sinasabi diyan ng BIR na hindi naman talaga sale yan eh. Parang gusto mo talagang ipamana yung property doon sa mga heirs mo. So kaya yan sinasubject sa estate taxes. So there are those kinds of transfers, especially nung prior to the effectivity of the train law. No? So that's in essence, that is estate tax. So what's the controlling law? No? Ang estate tax, so yung pag-determine ng estate tax, ng ano yung gross estate, ano ang net estate, ano ang tax rate, ano ang allowable deductions, lahat yan nakadepende sa batas na umiiral nung namatay yung may-ari ng mga ari-arian. No? Regardless kung kailan napunta dun sa mga beneficiary or dun sa mga tagapagmana yung property. No? So for example, it's only now na nakuha yung na punta yung possession ng property dun sa mga tagapagmana o dun sa mga beneficiary, pero yung may-ari namatay 10 years ago pa. No? So for purposes of computing the estate tax, babalik tayo dun sa kung ano yung batas na umiiral 10 years ago. So yun yung ibig sabihin yan. So ano yung estate tax rates? No? Prior to the effectivity of the train law, no? Ang controlling law was Republic Act number 8424. Ito yung ating National Internal Revenue Code or yung tax code. No? Prior to January 1, 2018, no? So beginning January 1, 1998 to December 31, 2017, ang tax rate for estate tax ranges from 5 to 20% depending on the value of the property. So mapapansin nyo, dito sa table na to, medyo komplikado yung pag-compute, no, nung estate tax. Pero pinasimple na yan under the train law. Ngayon, ang tax rate natin beginning January 1, 2018 pursuant to Republic Act number 10963 is fixed at 6%. So 6% of the value of the net estate. No? Again, no, determined at the time of death of the decedent. Sakop niyan lahat ng properties, no? Whether real or personal, tangible and intangible. And of course, less the allowable deduction. So mas pinadali na. 6% na ngayon. Unlike before na 5 to 20%. Malaki yung naging diferensya. Let's now proceed to the Tax Amnesty Act. The current effective Tax Amnesty was introduced by Republic Act number 11213 or the Tax Amnesty Act. Dalawa lang yung nandyan sa yung sakop ng amnesty. It's Estate Tax Amnesty and Tax Amnesty on Delinquency. So, but be careful when you read the original text of RA 11213 or the Amnesty Act because madaming provisions dyan ang navito ni Presidente Duterte. No? That law provided for a general amnesty pero inalis yun. No? Kaya ang natira ay Estate Tax Amnesty and Tax Amnesty on Delinquencies. So very briefly, ano ba yung Estate Tax Amnesty, of course, yung dinidiscuss natin ngayong hapon. And very briefly, ano ba yung Tax Amnesty on Delinquencies? Ito yung mga kaso na nagkaroon ng tax assessment, tapos naging final and executory yung tax assessment, either because hindi na-protest yung tax assessment or naiprotesta, pero nung na-deny, hindi nakapag-appeal sa Court of Tax Appeals or to the proper, hindi na-avail yung proper remedy. So yun yung tax on delinquencies. No? And of course, the law is being implemented by the BIR and the Department of Finance through Revenue Regulations number 06-2019. Ito pong revenue regulations na to available for download sa website ng BIR. So what are the policies behind the Tax Amnesty Act? Sabi ng batas, pinasa yung batas to provide a one-time opportunity to settle estate tax obligations and to give reasonable relief to to estates with deficiency taxes. No? So, alam naman siguro natin na marami nang hindi na tayo parang common na sa atin yung ganung mga kaso na katagal-tagal na namatay nung may-ari ng lupa, tinitirahan na or ginagamit na ng mga tagapagmana and beneficiaries yung property, pero hindi mailipat-lipat sa pangalan nila yung yung mga titulo, no? Because hindi na mabayaran yung tax dahil nag-accumulate na yung interest and surcharges. So, itong Tax Amnesty Act gives an opportunity to settle the deficiency estate taxes. No? And of course, isa sa mga layunin ng batas is to enhance revenue collection. No? Every time na magpapatupad ng tax amnesty ang gobyerno, nagkakaroon niya ng windfall collection, so tumataas talaga yung collection. No? And it's also a chance for the government to help declug the dockets in the BIR and in the courts, because pag na-settle yung mga obligations na yan, yung mga pending, yung mga natenggang kaso for the longest time sa BIR at sa korte, masasarado na yung mga kaso na yan. No? So, mas magkakaroon ng pagkakataon, no? Mas nag-i-increase yung chance na bumilis yung processing ng ibang na natenggang applications sa BIR and ibang mga kaso sa courts. No? And finally, gusto ng batas siyempre na pasimplehin yung process ng pag-comply. No? Kasi mas simple to increase to broaden or to increase the tax base. Na siyempre, mas madaling mag-comply, mas madaming susunod, di ba? So those are the policies. So let's talk about the deadlines. No? Ang Estate Tax Amnesty, the application must be filed not later than June 15, 2021. Ang Tax Amnesty on Delinquencies, ang deadline niyan is on 31 December 2020. No, now itong because of the COVID-19 pandemic, itong Tax Amnesty on Delinquencies na na-extend supposedly June pa lang paso na yung deadline na yan. Pero in-extend yan ng BIR to December 31, 2020. Itong Estate Tax Amnesty, itong June 15, 2021 deadline, yan pa yung deadline do sa original na issuance, no? Hindi pa natin alam kung i-extend ba yan ng BIR. It remains to be seen, no? So let's now discuss how to avail of Estate Tax Amnesty. So first, ano ba yung coverage ng Estate Tax Amnesty? Ang covered lang nito ay yung mga estate ng mga may-ari ng mga ari-arian na namatay on or before 31 December 2017. No? So take note of that, no? Yun lang mga estates that have remained unsettled with or without assessment duly issued as of 31 December 2017. So in other words, this is the period prior to the effectivity of the train law. So yan yung covered ng Estate Tax Amnesty. Hindi kasali dito yung estate tax liabilities na naging delinquent na. No? Again, kanina, diniscuss natin briefly kung ano yung ibig sabihin ng delinquent. No? Ito yung mga merong tax assessment na naging final and executory. Pero hindi naman ibig sabihin na wala ng amnesty na available sa kanila. So dahil delinquent na, doon na sila papasok sa Tax Amnesty on Delinquencies. No? Mag-iiba lang yung requirements at yung deadline. No? Okay, so hindi rin kasali sa Estate Tax Amnesty yung mga properties involved in cases pending in appropriate court. So ano-ano tong mga to? No? For example, nagkataon part ng gross estate yung isang property pero involved naman pala sa isang money laundering case. No? So hindi pwedeng isali yun sa Tax Amnesty. Also, those properties involved in graft and corruption charges, hindi pwedeng isama. And also those properties that are being subject to sequestration proceedings and other prosecutions by PCGG, Presidential Commission on Good Governance, hindi kasama yan sa Estate Tax Amnesty. No? So, how to avail of Estate Tax Amnesty, nag-uumpisa yan lahat sa computation ng gross estate. No? Gross estate, ibig sabihin, lahat ng ari-arian nung namatay nung panahon nung siya ay namatay. No? So all properties of the decedent at the time of his death. No? So ano-ano yan, no? All properties and interests, no? Hindi lang yung properties na nakapangalan sa decedent, no? Pati yung mga properties na meron siyang interest at the time of his death, including yung lifetime transfers na nabanggit natin kanina, di ba? Yung transfers in contemplation of death. Ini-include yan, kasama yan sa gross estate, no? So, depende ngayon, of course, if you're a resident or a citizen, no? Residents, meaning kahit hindi citizen, no? Basta dito, basta mayroong resident visa, yung properties niya, all properties, real and personal, tangible and intangible, wherever situated, residents or citizens, no? Yan yung coverage ng gross estate. Kapag non-resident aliens naman, only real and personal properties situated in the Philippines. Okay, so malinaw yan, ha? So, paano naman natin binavalue? How do we value? Paano yung valuation ng mga properties, no? The valuation is based on the fair market value as of the time of death of the decedent, no? So, kung paano dinidetermine yan, yung fair market value, depende if the property is real property, shares of stock, proprietary shares, or cash in bank, no? So, let's start with real property. Pag real property, ang FMV or fair market value is the higher value between the zonal value and the assessed value. So yung zonal value, makikita mo yan nakapublish yan, no, sa website ng BIR. And of course, because we're talking about the estate tax, no, ang zonal valuation na titingnan mo, kung ano yung valuation nung time of death. Okay? So nakandun yan sa website ng BIR, nakapost yan doon. Nakalagay din doon, depende sa iba-ibang periods. No? So make sure you're looking at the right period when you check the zonal valuation of the property that you're checking. No? And yung assessed value naman, nakikita yan. Meron available yan sa mga provincial and city assessors, and you can also check that sa tax declaration. So again, no, whichever is the higher value between those two. Pag shares of stocks, ang valuation niyan depende kung listed or non-listed. Pag listed or traded in the stock exchange, ang fair market value niyan is the price at the time of death, or kung hindi available yung information na yan, tinitingnan yung arithmetic mean or yung average, no, between the highest and the lowest price at a date nearest the death. Okay? Pag naman non-listed shares, pag common shares, the FMV is the book value. Kapag preferred shares, it's the par value. Okay? So to check the book value, you need the financial statements. And yung par value, makikita yan sa Articles of Incorporation. If the property naman is a proprietary shares in associations, recreation, or amusement club. So ano yung example nito? For example, mga golf playing rights. Yan. Shares sa Manila Polo Club or Makati Sports Club, no? Yung mga ganyan, no? Ang valuation niyan is based on the bid price at the time of death, or again, if not, that information is not available, it's the price or bid price nearest to the date of death. Kapag cash in bank naman, whether in local or foreign currency, so tapos nasa bank, of course, you have to check the balance, no? And it's based on the peso value of the balance at the time of death. So now let's discuss the deductions, no? Itong mga deductions, di ba, kuha na natin magkano yung value ng gross estate. Ito yung mga binabawas sa value ng gross estate to arrive at the net estate. So, sa net estate ina-apply yung tax rate, no? So para makuha mo yung net estate, you need to know the deductions available at the time of death, no? So makikita mo yan, pinadali sa atin ng BIR because the BIR issued Revenue Memorandum Circular number 103-2019, and sa annex nun, kita natin yan, ha? Sa annex ng RMC na yan, nandyan naka-enumerate yung iba-ibang deductions. Depende kung ano yung law effective, no, nung time of death ng decedent. So makikita niyo yan, it's also based on the tax code effective at that time. So makikita niyo iba-iba, no? Merong funeral expenses, family home, may standard deduction, medical expenses, claims against the estate or yung mga utang, no? Tapos unpaid mortgages. So nade-deduct yan, no? Or losses. Okay? So mapapansin nyo lang, depende sa year or sa or the law effective, depending on which year, nag-iiba-iba yung allowable deduction. So meron mga ibang hindi available, meron naman nag-iba yung maximum allowable rates. So again, no, pinadali sa atin yan ng BIR, no? Itong this memorandum circular is available sa BIR website. So ano yung mga requirements? So let's proceed to the requirements. So these are the requirements in general, no? You have the Estate Tax Amnesty Return or the ETAR, the Acceptance Payment Form or APF, and the required attachments. So we'll discuss them one by one. So this is the ETAR, no? Yung Estate Tax Amnesty Return. It's BIR form number 2118-EA. It's a part of the annex nitong binanggit natin kanina, itong RMC 103-2019, and it's also available for download sa website ng BIR. Makikita nyo dyan yung mga required information and disclosures that would enable the BIR that would enable you, and of course the BIR, to compute the amnesty tax. So these are the mandatory requirements, no? Makikita nyo dito sa mga requirements na to, of course, kailangan ma-establish yung identity ng decedent, identity ng mga heirs, ng mga tagapagmana at ng mga beneficiaryo. At of course, itong mga requirements na to, dito rin malalaman ng BIR kung tama yung computation natin ng amnesty tax. So first requirement is a certified true copy of the death certificate and the TIN or tax identification number of the decedents and of the heirs and beneficiaries, no? And of course, nandiyan na nga yung ETAR, saka yung APF na discuss natin kanina, and the revenue official receipt if the amnesty tax is paid to a revenue collection officer or RCO, no? And for pag walang last will and testament yung namatay, kailangan ng affidavit of self-adjudication or deed of extrajudicial settlement, no? Kung yung estate naman is settled judicially, meaning merong last will and testament yan, na probate yung will, kailangan ng court decision or judgment. Requirement then, number 6, ang certification from barangay captain for the last resident of the decedent, no? Para yan sa to prove yung claim regarding family home, kasi family home is one of the allowable deductions, no? And it will also determine whether the application for tax amnesty is being filed at the right revenue district office, no? So for number 7, 8, and 9, of course, another deductions, no, sa gross estate, kailangan yan i-substantiate, no? So kailangan merong proof para do sa claims against the estate, like a contract of loan or notarized promissory note, etc., no? Proof then of claim if the for claim as property previously taxed. And also, ganun din, no? If merong claim for deduction na transfer for public use, kailangan din ng mga documentary evidence to substantiate that. And number 10, kailangan ng government ID nung executor or administrator of the estate. No? Kung siya yung nag-aayos ng application for tax amnesty. Kung yung heirs naman, ganun din, no? Kailangan ng valid government ID. So kung mayroong real properties, part of the estate, or subject of the application, kailangan ng certified true copies ng mga titulo. Okay? Kailangan din ng certified true copy ng tax declaration. And kung may improvements dun sa property, kailangan nakasama yon sa tax declaration. Okay. Makikita nyo dito, no, yung period, no, kailangan mag-comply dito sa period ng tax declaration, no? Kasi kailangan including the improvement at the time of death. At kung wala yon, tax declaration issued nearest to the time of death of the decedent. And kung yung property involved naman walang improvements, kailangan merong certificate of no improvement na ma-issue ang assessor's office. O kung personal properties naman, for example, kailangan yan, so yung certificate of deposit or indebtedness, kailangan ipakita yon, no? Pagka naman mga sasakyan, halimbawa, kailangan yung certificate of registration and other documents that would show the correct value. Okay? So ganun din for certificate of stocks and other properties, kailangan merong proof of valuation. So other requirements, no? If the person transacting is an authorized representative or it could be your lawyer, no? Kailangan meron siyang SPA or Special Power of Attorney. Kung ang nag-aayos naman ng papeles isa sa mga tagapagmana or beneficiary, kailangan ng sworn affidavit to that effect. Okay? For documents naman executed abroad, kailangan ng certification from the Philippine Consulate or a certification in accordance with the Hague Apostille Convention. So ano ba tong briefly lang, no, itong Hague Apostille Convention. The Philippines is a party to this international agreement, to this convention, no. And briefly, ang sabi sa Hague Apostille Convention, if the document, no, is certified or apostilled by the proper government agency in the country of origin, no? Pag gagamitin yung dokumento na yun, and that country is also a party to the Hague Apostille Convention, pag gagamitin yung dokumento na yan sa Pilipinas, hindi na kailangan ng certification or consularization, no? Yan yung consularization or certification for Philippine Consulate. Ito yung mga naka-red ribbon na mga dokumento na dinala doon sa embassy or consulate para i-authenticate, no? So sabi ng Hague Apostille Convention, if the country of origin is a party to the Hague Apostille Convention and the document in question is properly certified or apostilled by the proper government agency of that country, pagdating ng dokumento na yun sa Pilipinas, hindi na yan kailangan ng certification from the Philippine Consulate, no? Sometime last year, I think it was around May of last year, nagpalabas ng internal memorandum ng BIR niyan, informing the relevant BIR offices na about this development, itong Hague Apostille Convention. And yet, there are still some BIR offices na naghahanap ng consularized documents despite having complied with the Apostille Convention. And we've also heard of some banks still requiring yung certification from the Philippine Consulate, no? So ano pa, siguro matagal-tagal, I don't know how long it will take para ma-familiarize yung iba-ibang government and private offices with this Hague Apostille Convention, no? I will look for my copy of this this BIR memorandum. If you're interested, you could send us your email so that we could send them to you later after this webinar. So let's go back. If the zonal value cannot be readily determined from the document submitted, at least dapat maipakita natin yung location plan or vicinity map. So this is the overview, no, of the process. No? So once makumpleto mo lahat ng requirements, yung mga dokumento na yun na binanggit natin kanina, sasubmit yan lahat sa RDO. No? So sa ang RDO, later on we will discuss that. Sasubmit yan lahat, yung ETAR together with the other requirements and the acceptance payment form, i-evaluate yan, no, for evaluation and for endorsement of the ATF. No? So after nyan, pag nakuha mo na yung endorsement ng acceptance payment form, pwede mo nang bayaran yung amnesty tax na na-compute mo, no, based on your ETAR. And after mo bayaran, balik ka sa RDO, submit yung triplicate copies ng ETAR, ATF with the proof of payment. No? So after makumpleto mo yung proseso na yan, pwede mo na ngayong antayin yung issuance of Certificate of Availment of Tax Amnesty. No? So under the law and under the relevant BR issuances, dapat ma-issue ang Certificate of Tax Availment within 15 days from the receipt of the application. Okay? So once you have that Certificate of Availment, pwede na ngayon ma-issue ang Electronic Certificate Authorizing Registration or ECAR. So ano ba itong ECAR? Itong ECAR, Certificate Authorizing Registration, yan na ngayon yung mag-authorize sa mga relevant government agencies like Register of Deeds or LTO, or kung meron kang bank deposits, yan yung papakita mo sa bangko, no? Para mailipat na ngayon yung mga properties ng estate doon sa mga heirs o sa mga tagapagmana or sa mga beneficiaries. So where to file? No? If the decedent is a resident, it's filed with the RDO having jurisdiction over the last residence of the decedent. No? If kung non-resident naman yung decedent pero meron siyang administrator or executor dito sa Pilipinas, it is filed with the RDO where the executor or administrator is registered. Or kung hindi siya rehistrado pa sa BIR, ipa-file yan dun sa RDO where the executor or administrator holds legal residence. No, kung non-resident naman yung namatay at walang executor or administrator dito sa Pilipinas, pina-file yung application sa RDO 39 South Quezon City. Nasa Quezon Avenue yan, yung opisina nila ng RDO 39. So other notes, no? For undeclared properties, no? So pwedeng mangyari kasi na na settle na yung estate ng decedent some time ago, pero merong mga properties na naiwan, no? Na hindi na declare doon sa nauna ng estate tax payments, no, or declaration. Pwede pa rin niyang makover ng tax amnesty without penalties. Susundin lang yung mga requirements na nabanggit natin kanina. So pwede pa rin maihabol yan kahit na na-settle na partially at least yung estate ng decedent, no. So for properties naman, no, that were subject of taxable donation, pwede rin mangyari kasi, for example, merong properties included in the gross estate, pero halimbawa hindi pa nalipat sa pangalan nung namatay. So halimbawa, binili niya yan, deed of absolute sale pa lang, o hindi pa nabayaran yung tax. Tapos naisama yan sa gross estate, bago maisama yan, no, sa estate tax amnesty, kailangan bayaran muna yung deficiency tax, no, nung sale na yon or ng donation na yon. Kaya lang dito, ang extra complication dito, kailangan pati penalties bayaran and interest, no. So yan, no. But in any way, regardless naman kung may amnesty o wala, bago mo mailipat yung titulo ng property na yon doon sa mga bagong may-ari, kailangan mo pa rin bayaran yon, no? Yung corresponding donors or capital gains or other applicable taxes, no? So let's proceed with the sample computation. No? Ms. Myra, ang ating tax compliance expert, will discuss the computation uh, to give us a more concrete understanding of the concept we've just discussed. Ms. Myra?
Thank you, Attorney Oliver. Good afternoon, everyone. Okay, now that Attorney Oliver has already
Ms. Ma, you can start. I'm sorry, Ms. Ma,
can you
you
share
can
screen, please?
you can start sharing your screen, ma'am.
Okay. Is my screen sharing already? Now that Attorney Oliver has already explained the basics of estate tax and the Estate Tax Amnesty, let's apply this in an illustrative example para at least we can see, we can translate it in peso terms kung ano yung effect ng tax amnesty. So, in our example, we assume si Mr. X, who is married, he died on October 20, 2017, leaving the following properties and expenses as of the time of his death. So for purposes of our discussion, remember Attorney Oliver already mentioned ano yung proper valuation, ano yung mga deductible expenses. So ito na, so ang assumption natin, this is the proper valuation as of the time of death. So since he died on October 20, 2017, since he died on October 20, 2017, which is before December 31, 2017, and no estate tax return has yet been filed, so he would qualify for the tax amnesty provided under yung dinidiscuss ni Attorney Oli. So, in computing for the net taxable estate, since he died in 2017, ang applicable law at that time is RA 8424. So, we need to group the properties and the related expenses between exclusive and community or conjugal property. Bakit kailangan natin siyang i-group? Kasi once you do the computation after deducting the allowable deductions from the gross estate, you also need to determine the share of the surviving spouse, which would be 1/2 of the net conjugal estate. If you notice, dun sa there are certain expenses na hindi fully deductible. Kasi under RA 8424, may mga cap yung mga expenses na yan. Such as the family home, although 8 million yung value ng family home, ang maximum allowable under the law at the time of his death is only 1 million. Likewise, for medical expenses, although yung actual expense niya was 600,000, you can only deduct 500,000. So now, after computing the allowable deductions and the share of the surviving spouse, we will arrive at a net taxable estate of 21,715,000. Kung hindi siya mag-avail ng tax amnesty, ang tax due on that net taxable estate of 21 million is 3,558,000 pesos. So since late pa siya, since namatay siya noong October 2017, his return should have been filed 6 months thereafter. So dapat niyan mga April 20, 2018 siya na i-file. Since August 20 lang siya magpa-file ng return, there will be surcharge and interest and penalty. The surcharge is 25% of the basic tax and the interest is 12% per annum beginning 2018, January 1, 2018, but prior to that, the interest rate is 20%. Tapos yung penalty is based on a table issued by the BIR. So, assuming there was no amnesty, the heirs of Mr. X would be paying estate tax of around 5.4 million pesos. Now, if an amnesty was availed, it will only be 6% of the net taxable estate. So 6% of 21,715,000 will give us 1,302,900. So comparing the two, there is a difference of 4,167,399.67. So yan yung magiging savings if the heirs have availed of the amnesty. Now, halimbawa naman, assume natin hindi siya ng 2017 namatay. So para lang makita natin yung different permutations. What if Mr. X died in 2005 or in 1998 or in 1994 or 1989? So what will be the estate tax due? As Attorney Oliver mentioned before, kailangan mo munang i-determine ano ba yung prevailing law as of the time of death. So for from 1998 and 2005, the prevailing law is RA 8424. And then during 1994, the prevailing law was RA 7499. And in 1989, the prevailing law was PD, PD 1990. Okay. If you look at the Annex C attached to the invitation email that's sent to you, meron dong breakdown kung ano yung mga allowable deductions during the period in which that law was in effect. So if we use that one, if you notice, tumataas yung net estate habang the earlier the date of death is. This is because may yung mga earlier versions of the law, it's either may mga certain deductions na grant under 8424 na hindi grant under the previous law, or the cap was lower, the maximum amount deductible was lower than dun sa RA 8424. Now, so after considering yung net estate niyan, we will compute now for the basic taxes. If you look at it, the earlier yung death ni Mr. X, the higher the basic tax is. It is because dahil nga mas mataas na yung net estate, and secondly, the tax rates as of that time was higher. The tax rate as of October 20, 1994, ang tax rate niya then was around between 5% to 35%. Whereas nung year ng 1989, the tax rate prevailing was between 3% to 60%. So that's one reason why ganyang kalaki yung basic tax. Also, if you notice, the longer the date of death is, mas mataas din yung interest rate kasi the longer yung period niya. So as you can see, ganito kalaki yung lumalabas na total tax due if the tax amnesty was not availed. Now, in comparison, under the estate tax, if you just use 6% of the net taxable estate, ito lang yung babayaran niya. So, if you notice, the highest amount will not exceed 1.5 million pesos compared to the previous amount, which is around 101 million pesos. So, as you can see, malaki yung savings talaga ma-generate if the estate tax amnesty is availed of. So after this, I would like to revert you back to Attorney Oliver. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Ms. Myra. Apologies for the slight delay. So makikita nyo, no, this law, itong Estate Tax Amnesty really provides a good opportunity to settle yung mga natenga na ng mga deficiency tax liabilities, no? Especially for those estates na yung decedent namatay long time ago, no? So ito na yon, the time is now to avail of to settle that tax liabilities and para malipat na rin sa pangalan ng mga tagapagmana and beneficiaries yung mga properties, no? So let's now discuss ano nang magiging epekto ngayon, no, ng assuming nag-comply tayo sa lahat ng conditions and requirement ng tax amnesty. So what's the effect, no? Primary effect nito, nagkakaroon ng immunity yung estate from the following consequences, no, arising from the failure to pay the estate tax. Una, hindi na siyempre ngayon tayo pwedeng singilin ng BIR for deficiency estate taxes as well as any interest or surcharges, no? Hindi na pwedeng maging subject ng assessment yung for a deficiency estate tax yung mga properties included dun sa estate tax amnesty, no? And also, remember, ang non-filing of tax returns, non-payment of tax is a criminal offense, no? So, yung corresponding civil, criminal, and administrative liabilities arising from the failure to pay the tax, sakop din yan, no, nung immunity na yan. So, parang hagip na yan ng amnesty. So, hindi lang yung deficiency tax liabilities, kasama na rin dyan yung civil, criminal, and administrative liabilities that correspond. And lastly, and I think ito yung the primary purpose kung bakit tayo mag-avail ng estate tax amnesty, mai-issuehan na finally ng certificate authorizing registration yung mga heirs and beneficiaries para mailipat na sa pangalan nila yung mga properties, no? So ngayon, pwede nang pumunta sa Register of Deeds para kumuha na ng bagong set of titles. So yun lang po, no? Ito na yung dito na po nagtatapos yung ating webinar for this afternoon. We will now proceed to answer your questions and clarifications, if any. But before we do that, again, we are reminding you, no, of the various platforms kung saan po namin ginagawa yung aming advocacy na binanggit ko kanina to provide, to promote taxpayer education and to provide useful information to the general public about their rights under the law, no? We're streaming live now on Facebook, but even after this webinar, ito pong webinar na to and the previous ones we held is still available in our Facebook page. This webinar will also be uploaded in our Facebook page and in LinkedIn. And again, we're also encouraging you to check out the Daily Tribune. We have a column there every Friday. It's published every Friday. The column is called Practical Law. And every Saturday at 3 p.m. sa Facebook page po ng the Daily Tribune, our lawyers appear there for the program called Katribu to answer the legal concerns, no, of the participants in that forum. So we will now entertain your questions. Attorney Jeff David, one of our partners, will be our moderator. Jeff?
Hi, hi everyone. I'll be your moderator. So if you do have questions, paki-type na lang po doon sa inyong chat box sa bottom ng inyong screen. Meron po tayo diyang Q&A. So if you have questions, pwede po kayo mag-type dyan. Or if medyo nahihiya po kayo sa nature ng question nyo, pwede nyo naman pong i-private chat, no? And then, of course, without naming names, itatanong po natin yan sa ating mga hosts for this afternoon. Pwede na po kayo magsimula. Mas maganda kung ma-address natin ngayon ang mga katanungan nyo, no? Kasi importante pong malaman nyo at mawawala ang alinlangan sa inyong mga pag-iisip. Medyo technical po kasi yung tax amnesty, no? Medyo straightforward siya. Pag tinignan nyo nga ho, sinabi nila Attorney Oliver and Miss Myra kanina, pero may mga intricacies pa rin po kasi yan. No? Hindi po yan parang as easy as 1, 2, 3. Right. Okay. Mukhang wala naman ho yatang mga katanungan pa, no? Pero po, kung kayo po ay may mga, let's say, tanong, no? Ito po meron po dito isang katanungan. Paano kung one air lang ang mag-claim ng paano kung isang heir lang ang mag-claim ng property at 4 silang magkakapatid? Attorney Oliver, Miss Myra?
Okay, so yung ano na yan, no? Yung
Hello?
issue na yan. Hello? Jeff, can you hear me? So yung issue na yan, no? Hindi yan sakop ng ng Estate Tax Amnesty, no? The remedy
po namin kayo, sir.
Pwedeng yan, no? Pwedeng i-question ng ibang heirs yan. Yung pag-claim ng isang heir, no? There are proper remedies for that, assuming ma-transfer sa kanya yung mga properties. May mga remedies diyan, and it's not governed by the tax amnesty law anymore, no, or the tax code, no. Ang concern ng tax code and tax amnesty is just the collection of taxes and the settlement of the estate, no. So the other heirs might need to go to court to question the transfer.
So another question po, no, it was posed by one of our attendees. Once we paid all the tax before the deadline, can we do the transfer after the deadline? So two-part question siya, sir, no? Kung pagkakaintindi na ng lahat. Magbabayad sila bago mag-deadline nung close nung period to file nung tax amnesty, pero the actual processing, no, nung pag-file ng dokumento sa BIR would be done after. Would that be still covered by the tax amnesty, the tax amnesty law?
Yes. The deadline is for the filing of the application and not the securing of the certificate authorizing registration, no. What will authorize them to transfer the properties in their names? Yung e-car na, yung certificate authorizing registration. And although the law and the BIR regulations provided for certain periods within which yung certain documents will be issued, posible kasi talagang tumagal yan, humaba eh. Pwedeng mag-back and forth dyan yung BIR and the taxpayer sa pag-process kasi kung may question, for example, dun sa mga substantiation requirements, so pwedeng humaba talaga yan. Posible talaga yan na ma-file before the deadline, but the completion of the process, and which means yung securing nung car, no, could happen after the deadline. So pwede pa rin naman yun. The deadline is for the filing of the application.
Okay. May isa po tayong katanungan, no? How long would the process of applying for the estate settlement take? Assuming the estate settlement in this regard would be tax amnesty settlement po nung estate tax settlement po.
Well, yung process sa BIR, no, if we would just follow the regulations and the RNCs, supposedly pag ma-file mo yung complete documents after 15 days magkapag-issue na ang BIR ng ng certificate of availment. And once you have the certificate of availment, pwede mo na nga yung antayin yung e-car. Siguro yung issuance ng car might take 1 to 2 weeks. But ang posibleng magtagal dito is the completion of the requirements. Parang yun yung magiging crucial dyan, no? Yun yung posibleng magpatagal. Kasi madami-dami yung mga requirements and tapos mai-file mo pa yan ngayon. From time to time, may mga BIR offices na nagsasara. So you have to take that into consideration, no? Kailangan ma-factor in mo yan lahat sa pag-estimate mo kung aabot ka ba sa deadline o hindi. But once you filed, look, very important yung qualification na yun sa RMCs and BIR regulations and the law, no? Yung 15 days is counted from the submission of complete documents, no? So kung pupunta ka sa BIR, kulang yung dokumento, hindi pa nagsisimula yung bilang ng 15 days. So yun yung tricky part there. So the crucial part is the completion of the documents. Yung pag-follow up sa BIR, parang nasa pagpupursige na yan nung nagpa-follow up. Ang BIR gumagalaw naman ba
just
sa
speaking
kompleto
naman, sir,
dokumento?
no? Yes, sir. Ang akin naman, speaking from experience, no, kasi we've handled a few of these already. Yung sa amin, sir, parang ang difficulties really with regard to mga hindi cut and dry na amnesty talaga. Yung may mga questions of law pa. Kasi pretty straightforward naman siya, sir. Kasi if you pay the tax amnesty, ma-compute lang kaagad yon. It's pretty basic kasi 6% on gross na lang. Diba?
Right.
Wala na tayong problem doon kasi the valuation is pretty straightforward. Ang may issue dito, sir, kung may questions talaga kayo with regard to the length, is if may issues yung property talaga or yung may issues yung estate aside from non-payment of estate tax. Yun lang naman yung magiging parang
Of course,
magiging problem
those
nila.
factors will really complicate yung application.
Yes. In that case, I think we really need to advise them to secure services of counsel pag ganun na kasi it's no longer a question of just paying the tax.
Right.
All right. There's another question here, no? I think this is pretty much detailed. Deceased grandfather and grandmother, estate tax was not filed. 3 of the heirs are now deceased too. 2 of the deceased were without heirs. Of course, 1 is my father. We filed and paid the estate tax only for my father in 2014. How do we compute for estate tax for 2 generations individually? Or can we compute for collective tax in terms of how many heirs are still living? I think it's more of a generational type of computation, Ms. Mai. No? I think Ms. Mai would be the proper party to address this in terms of how to break down yung computing for the estate tax.
Yes. And dapat kasi when you compute for estate tax, for every transfer yan. So every time may nakamatay, 1 estate tax return yan. So compute ka na magre-compute. So if one of the heirs died, so kung merong siyang succeeding heirs at isa dun sa mga heirs ay kapart din ng heir ng ng property. So one estate tax. Tapos kung yung heir na yon namatay ulit, another estate tax for that. So ayun, for every death, for every transfer of property, 1 estate tax return has to be filed.
Right.
So kung medyo hindi po clear, ang ibig sabihin lang po nun, bawat isang decedent, no, bawat isang namatay, isang settlement po yan. Parang isang settlement. Treat it as a separate estate po. So on and so forth po. Right. Another question here is multiple estates naman. There are cases where 3 generations pa ang unsettled estate. Can the present heirs file it now? And what is the tax treatment of these? Shall we file 3 returns for the 3 generations? How about the documentation po?
So,
I think I can answer this question, no? Similar to the previous question, no? Ang ano dito is each and every document, each and every estate would have separate documentation. Yun lang naman po importante dyan. Parang you cannot settle an estate or multiple estates as one settlement. It has to be done separately.
Hindi nila lump
so,
together
pag multiple estates
parang,
po kayo, so yes, tama. Alright, may isa pa pong question, okay? If some siblings are not cooperating, may a sibling act alone to file the estate tax to be able to avail of the estate tax amnesty? course, partially with the Estate Tax Amnesty and Civil Code in terms of ano. Oo.
Ang magiging difficulty dyan, kung mapansin mo, one of the requirements is kung walang last will and testament, kailangan yung ano
EJS.
yung extrajudicial settlement. No? So, doon yan magkakaproblema. Merong isang requirement na hindi mako-compliant. Ang problema naman, pag nag-adjudication of sole heir siya, that person will be committing perjury.
Okay. So, ano lang yun, ma'am, no? If that is the question with regard to that, you have to secure, if meron kayong siblings, it has to be with their concurrence po. Kasi hindi nyo rin ma-adjudicate by yourself yung assets. So it has to be with your siblings same time.
Yeah, made-deadlock talaga.
Meron din po, if talagang hindi kayo talaga nagkakasundo, you have to go to court.
Yeah, you have to
and
go
have
to
court. The court appoint yung administrator, ng administrator ng estate po. Okay, same question. How long does the process of settling an estate under this amnesty law take? Where is the bottleneck that causes delay? At what point is the availment of the amnesty made? Filing lang ba ng application even without payment? So I think the main question is, ano po ba ang reckoning point? Is it the payment or the filing?
It's the filing. No. Kasi first before you pay, you have to file the complete documents na kasi sa RDO, parang your application and your attachments, the required documents will be subject of the evaluation. So hindi ka naman basta-basta kasi makaka-proceed magbayad. So you have to file first para ma-endorse yung APF.
There's another question, no? How many have availed of amnesty as of this time, considering na matagal pa ang deadline? The reason I am asking is that sanay na ba ang BIR officials in the implementation of this amnesty law, or is the situation still like of the implementation of the Hague Apostille Rule? So I think the main question, if it can be summarized po, is with regard to how versed ba si BIR dito? As in, yung rules ba sa isang RDO would definitely be the same with another RDO? The manner of implementation from one district is the same with one district? Or should they expect parang may variance ba yung pag-treat dun sa application sa isang district as against sa isa?
Okay. So parang hindi naman problema yung technical competence as far as the BIR is concerned. No? Magkakaroon lang yan ng mga nuances siguro sa implementation, parang probably on the minor points lang. Hindi naman hindi ganun magiging kalaki yung variance from one RDO to another. Siguro one RDO might be stricter than the other, ganun lang siguro. Hindi naman so far wala naman tayong nakitang problema in so far as the BIR's competence is concerned regarding this matter.
Okay. Another question. I have siblings who have settled abroad, who have acquired foreign citizenship. They do not have, of course, tax identification numbers in the Philippines. How do we remedy this? No, I think it's a question related to, of course, the tax amnesty, but of course, they understand that they have to secure a tax identification number first. How is it remedied though, sir?
They can file for a one-time PIN application. They can just fill up for negative 4.
Yeah. Medyo choppy si Miss Myra, but what Miss Myra is saying is for non-residents, no, para makakuha, kung wala silang tax identification number, meron niyang proper application for one-time transactions. Pwedeng kumuha ng PIN sa RDO 39. Doon pwedeng kumuha ng PIN yung mga non-residents.
Okay. in terms of, I think this is more of a question with regard to siguro structuring the estate ito. Should we consider nephews and nieces as heirs for purposes of the extrajudicial settlement? In this case, sir, I think there would be already parang implication also of donor's tax dito eh. Kasi hindi sila direct heirs eh.
Again, no, paano yung question? Consider ba yung walang last will, intestate ba?
In this extrajudicial, sir. So most probably intestate.
Extrajudicial, intestate. Merong rule kasi sa civil code, merong rule ng exclusion ng mga heirs eh. And meron din rules ng substitution sa civil code, no? So depende yan sa circumstances. Unless we have the details siguro nung particular estate or particular situation, we can't really answer that. But generally, kung ang decedent are the grandparents, for example, no? Tapos may mga magkakapatid na heirs, tapos may mga nephews and nieces sila, yung nearer kasi dun sa decedent excludes the father, yung mga nieces and nephews. So kung intestate ang pinag-uusapan natin dito, walang last will and testament, generally excluded yung mga nephews and nieces unless one of the children ng mga namatay na rin, and pwedeng mag-kick in na yung rule on civil code on substitution. Pwedeng mag-substitute yung nephews and nieces for their deceased parent. So we can only, parang ano lang, medyo general lang yung answer namin. I'm so sorry. We need more information.
Okay. There's a clarification, no? Deadline of the estate amnesty is on the filing of the application and not payment. I think this is yung reckoning nung let's say if you would be on the date of the last day of the filing, if you didn't effect the payment on that date, would the amnesty be considered by the BAR? Yun yung parang yun yung tenor ng question.
So. Yeah, I think so. The deadline refers to the filing of the application, not to the payment of the amnesty tax.
Okay. Right. So I'm not seeing any more questions in both private chat and the Q&A, no?
Okay.
So we can leave it siguro up to here, sirs. Thank you very much. Just to give them additional information, of course, no. Should they have more detailed questions, they can send us an email. I think we have provided the appropriate email, or they can send us a short message in our FB page. At the very least, we can address them in depth. Kasi siguro most of our answers medyo general. It may not have direct application sa situations nyo, but because we would need more information. So yun na lang siguro.
Yeah. Yeah, we have to qualify our answer regarding that, no? So please, if you have, like Attorney Jeff said, no, kung meron pang mga ibang questions, you could reach us through any of these platforms, and of course, you could Google our office name and lalabas naman doon yung mga details on how to contact us. We'd be happy to reply to your questions.
Okay. All right. So, Attorney Oliver, Ms. Myra, thank you very much for being gracious.
Yeah, thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for spending your afternoon with us. No? We will see you in our next webinar.
Yes, we do try to have this at least at least once a month. So, for those who have given us or given their suggestions on what future topics that we would be discussing, we thank you for that. It would guide us on what would be much more interesting in the future. Yeah. So just keep on giving us constructive criticisms or comments on the topics that we would be providing for you para at least mas maging relevant yung webinars natin sa inyo. Right.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everyone. Good afternoon.
Thank you. Good afternoon.